Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We've got some entitled parents to hear about, so let's jump into our first story of the day by Brada66, entitled Mother Thinks I Should Pay for Her Kid for Work He Didn't Do. It's been a while since I posted. This happened about a couple of months ago. First off, I am disabled. I'm a one-legged amputee and had a stroke a couple years ago. I've recovered mostly from the stroke. Some paralysis in my left arm still, but I can still do most things I did before. I also live alone and am pretty independent. One thing I can't do is mow my yard. I live on a very big lot and the backyard is big enough for a couple more houses to be there, and the front and side are almost as big. I do have a riding mower, but I have a tendency to fall off when I use it. One leg and a poor sense of balance, not a great combination. A neighbor's teenage son would mow it for me once every week for $50. He graduated and went into the military, so I had to find someone new this year. I have a friend who will mow for me for free, but I don't like to impose on him, and I figure most teenagers could use an extra $50. Last year, some new neighbors moved in, consisting of a mother in her early 40s and her two teenage sons. I didn't know about the boy's father, but she apparently had a number of boyfriends who were always coming over and staying overnight. The older son, about 17, was always outside working on an old car he had. I got to talking to him and he said he was trying to get it running but couldn't afford all the parts he needs. So I offered him the same deal I had with the other kid. I'd pay $50 a week for the kid to use my riding mower to mow the yard once a week. He jumped at it. The first couple of weeks went pretty good. I'd go ahead and pay him in advance and then he'd mow the yard. That way, if I had to leave or was napping, he didn't have to wait for his money. The third week he came, he asked if he could use my mower on his yard. His yard is tiny compared to mine. My backyard alone is almost twice the size of his front and back together. I told him to go ahead. I was going to a friend's house and would be back later and paid him. I came back that evening, but it was too dark to really see the yard. The next day, I saw that my yards had not been mowed. I rolled over to his house with its newly trimmed yard and knocked. His mother answered. Now, I have never seen his mother wearing anything but an old terry cloth robe and house shoes. She apparently doesn't work or really do much of anything. I asked for the kid and she said he had gone somewhere with his friends. I thought that was strange with everything going on. Not surprising though. I've never seen anyone at that house wearing a mask. I wear one anytime I leave the house. Anyway, I didn't see him that day, so my yard didn't get mowed. A couple days later, it rained for a bit, so it was getting pretty tall. A few days later, he came over wanting to mow. He asked about the pay, and I told him he had never mowed it last week, so I'm not paying him this week. He made some comment about rain and then about it being so high this time. I told him if he had mowed when he was supposed to, it wouldn't be so tall. He had already been paid for work he didn't do and I wasn't going to pay him again. As he walked away, I heard him say, "A-hole." Shortly after that, his mom came over in her bathrobe and house shoes. I answered the door and this was the conversation. "You need to pay my son. I paid him last week for something he didn't do. I'm not paying him again." "But it rained last week. He couldn't mow. You can't blame him for weather." "It didn't rain until 2 days after he was supposed to mow. He didn't have any trouble mowing your yard." "My yard's not that big. Yours is huge." "Which is why I have a riding mower."
"Well, just pay him and he'll mow it."
"He still hasn't mowed it after the last time I paid him."
"Well, I won't let him mow it unless you pay him. Then what will you do?"
"I have a friend who will mow it for free. I was really just helping your son out." Entitled Mother, sneering at me.
"You're just a cripple. You don't have friends."
"Yeah, I'm a cripple, but I guarantee I have more friends than some lazy bloated who spreads her legs for any guy she sees." Yeah, that really got her pissed.
"You'll be sorry. I know people who will kick your sorry butt. You'll be sorry you spoke to me like that."
"Thank you. That definitely was loud enough for the microphone to pick up. Now turn and smile for the camera." I pointed to the security camera mounted on the eave of my house, pointed at the front door. "I'm sure the police will enjoy hearing that you just threatened me. You know it's a felony to threaten a vulnerable person." "Probably not, but it sounded good." She stuck her hand up in front of her face and took off back to her own house. I heard the door slam. Didn't see her for the rest of the day. My friend came and mowed the next day. I saw the kid out by his car watching. That night, he came over and apologized. We had a long talk, and honestly, he's not a bad kid. He's had a tough life. His father left when he was little, and his half-brother, who's 14, lives with his own father, only comes to stay occasionally. His mother doesn't even try to do anything but sleep and go to bars at night and bring home whatever guy is desperate enough to be with her. She takes any money she gets. That's why he wanted to get paid. She insisted that he give her money. He's been trying to get money for the car parts, but she always takes his money. So I offered, instead of paying him in cash, I could just buy him the parts he needs. He loved the idea, and by mowing before noon when she was still asleep, she wouldn't even know he was mowing for me. He wants to move out but has nowhere to go. I found out he turns 18 in a couple months, and I've told him he could stay with me then, as long as he obeyed the rules of my house. He's worried about what his mom might do, but I told him she can't do anything once he's 18. Besides, she tends to hide her face and go inside whenever she sees me. He told me she's scared I might take the video to the police and she's already been in trouble with the law. Besides, I happen to know the owners of that house are selling it, and she'll have to move soon anyway. Funniest part of this is that the camera doesn't even work. The previous owner put it up and didn't take it with them. I just never took it down and have never even messed with it. So I think it's pretty apparent just by reading the story that OP is a pretty good person. It's a difficult situation for the kid to be in where their mother is basically taking all their money and just kind of wasting away. If you were in OP situation, would you make some of the same offers that OP did with allowing them to move in when they're 18? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Our next story is by XX Immortal XX. Bought a new Nintendo Switch to reward myself. Entitled mother wanted me to give it to her since she doesn't buy stuff for entitled kid. This happened about a month ago and I finally decided to write about it on Reddit. I work in a Starbucks coffee shop located in a mall where Karens are known to swarm. I've heard a few stories about them arguing about their coffee not being done properly, but I didn't think that I would experience an encounter with one myself. Unfortunately, I did. After getting paid minimum wage brewing coffee for 3 months, I finally saved enough money to buy myself a Nintendo Switch, which the gaming store in the mall sold for about $500. My first mistake was buying it on a Saturday, which was the day entitled parents usually bring their kids to the mall. At that time, I didn't really think much about it, as the chances of actually having an episode was low. So on that day, after I was done with my shift, I went to the store and paid for a Switch, along with a few games like Smash Bros. And Breath of the Wild. While the store employee was scanning my card, I glanced at my surroundings in order to avoid having awkward eye contact with the employee, and outside, I saw entitled mother, 40-ish, and entitled kid, 10-ish. They looked pretty normal, so I didn't think too much about them. When I took the paper bag and carried it out of the store, entitled kid somehow noticed that I was carrying a Nintendo Switch. Maybe he already knew while I was in the store and began to beg entitled mother for one. I knew that it was a normal reaction for a child, so I ignored him and continued walking to the exit of the mall. Suddenly, entitled mother shrieked loud as freak and scared the poop out of me.
I recognize you. You're the guy at Starbucks.
Since I obviously didn't know who entitled mother is, I just replied with a, "Yeah, I work there."
Listen, my son really wants the Nintendo Switch. It's his birthday tomorrow, and since you're not gonna play with it anyway, you should just give it to me.
From entitled kid's reaction, I could obviously tell that she was lying, and so I said, "Well, it's only $500, you could buy one yourself." Obviously, replying was a mistake. I should have just walked away. Now entitled mother was mad. She shouted,
"You wouldn't have time to play it anyways, you have a job. My son doesn't have any toys at home to play with, so you better give him the Switch."
I was just shocked at how she demanded me to just give away a $500 console. It was her fault that she didn't buy entitled kid toys, so she shouldn't go around asking for free stuff. I had a feeling that this wasn't the first time that entitled mother had done this. Entitled kid was practically begging entitled mother to stop with this stuff. Luckily, before the situation escalated, the store employee that helped me with the purchase earlier saw the whole thing and offered entitled kid a secondhand PSP, probably to not only calm entitled mother down, but also maybe because he felt sorry that entitled kid had to deal with this stuff every day and gave him some form of entertainment. I thanked the store employee for helping me with the situation and even gave him a $10 tip as a way of showing my appreciation. Even though Entitled Kid was happy as freak about his new PSP, Entitled Mother was giving me a stone-cold glance as I walked away from her. Until now, I'm still afraid that I'll have another episode with her, because she knows that I work at Starbucks, but I can only hope for the best. You definitely feel bad for the kid in stories like this, where the whole thing is really just perpetuated by the entitled parent, and you can actually see more maturity coming out of the kid than you can the parent. How did she ever expect that someone was just going to give up $500 worth of games and consoles? That's just so unrealistic all around. The next story is written by ItsMeSpring, Karen at a roller skating rink. This is written from my friend's point of view. Sorry for the story being so short. About 10 months ago, I was at a roller skating rink because a friend invited me. This was my first time roller skating, so, as you would expect, I was constantly falling over. At one point, I fell and accidentally tripped Entitled Mother's kid over. Kid didn't seem injured and wasn't whining like the other kids on this sub. All of a sudden, Entitled Mother rushed over and the following conversation ensued. This is a bit paraphrased as I don't remember the exact conversation.
How dare you attack my angel? Leave now.
Friend's mom walks over hearing all the commotion. Entitled Mother to friend's mom,
how dare your kid attack my little angel?
Friend's mom says, first, he isn't my kid. Second, he would never do such a thing. Entitled Mother and friend's mom then leave the premises to continue their argument. I don't know what happened during the argument. The next thing I saw was Entitled Mother being escorted out of the building by a security guard. She then proceeded to fall and break her phone. Karma. Sometimes some bad things happen to you and you kind of don't believe karma's a thing because why is it happening to you? But then she gets escorted out, falls over herself and breaks her phone. And it feels a bit more like karmic justice is a thing. The next story is written by Bearded Alien 013. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Hear me out, my fellow people. I'm working from home, but my wife still has to go to her office to attend her patients. Whenever she needs to go, I drive her there. Same happens when she's done there. I'll pick her up and drive her home. We are social distancing and are not going out whatsoever, and once a week I'll clean my car inside and out. Today I left her there and was driving back to my house. When I'm driving and won't get out of the car, I don't wear my mask, even though I carry it with me. Let me emphasize this. When I'm driving my car, nobody but my wife gets in my car, okay? I'm at a red light. All is good. All of a sudden, I hear a tap on my windows. I roll it down just a few millimeters so I can hear her, and our star Karen starts her rant. I want to point out when she came to talk to me, her mask wasn't covering her mouth and nose.
Why aren't you wearing a mask?
What?
Why aren't you wearing a freaking mask? You're setting a bad example to kids.
I'm in my car at a red light with my windows closed and air conditioner on.
I don't care, a-hole. I see your mask. Put it on now. You're setting a bad example, toy child.
That's when she points to her child on the sidewalk. Yes, she left a child unattended just to scream at me. The light turns green and I start to drive away. She kept screaming and threw a water bottle on my car. I decided to ignore and move on. I don't think I'm wrong about this. Not wearing a mask inside of a car that I clean at least once a week and I'm the only one with access to it. So I think OP is completely fine here. If you're inside your car driving around, I don't think you have to wear a mask. The only time you need to wear a mask is when you're going into public around other people. You're not getting remotely near any other people while you're inside your car driving around. It's honestly a waste of your mask, adding unnecessary contamination and exposure time to your mouth and nose when you're not even being around anybody. And our final story of the day is by Himabee, entitled Mother Lets Kids Steal Food From Me. Okay, so it's been a while since anything entitled has happened to me, and although this story is rather small, it has angered me beyond anything else. I had just finished work and was on my way home and decided I was going to go to Greg's. UK people know what this is. To get myself a donut for after my dinner later that night. I bought one, put it in my bag and headed over to the bus stop, put the bag on the ground and started playing on my phone. Around 5 minutes later, I see a kid and their mother, EM for short. come and stand next to me, but I didn't pay them much attention. That is until I look down from my phone and see the kid inside my bag holding my donut, and before I can say a word, he takes a huge bite out of it. Instantly, I look at entitled mother, expecting her to shout or scold the kid for what he did, but she opens her arms and lets the kid run over to her. "Excuse me, but your kid just ate my donut that I bought?" I said to her through gritted teeth. She responded with, "I know, my baby was hungry and I said he could have your donut as long as he asked you first." All the while, she was giving me a fake smile. Well, he didn't ask me for anything. All they did was walk over and take my stuff. The entitled mother then shrugged, grabbed her kid, and walked away. I wanted to freak out and rant at her, but I was in my work uniform, and all it takes is for her to complain that I was rude or violent towards her outside of work, and I would be screwed. This made me angrier than it should have. So regarding that final line where OP said this made me angrier than it should have, that would have made me pretty darn angry. I would have had some choice words. I think there is a very, very justifiable level of anger involved with some kid walking up, grabbing your donut and taking it, and then the entitled mother being so nonchalant about it and not giving a care about your stuff. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe and turn notifications on if you haven't. All of those things help the channel out so incredibly much. So no matter what you did, whether it was commenting, liking, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. That said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.